By the way, I have to say, I mentioned Collision. I have to mention this here because I'm not doing a formal Collision review here, but I had to mention this. There was a moment last night on Collision where they cut to a pre-tape with Keith Lee in the back with Lexi Nair. And they left in the opening seconds with a production worker who you can see on camera. He's kind of off to the side, but he's on camera. And he's standing there and he's saying, take 22. And then counting them down before Lexi starts speaking. This actually made television. This made the airwaves. That was embarrassing. That one's on whoever the editor was for that segment. How do you let that happen? And 22 takes. If that was the best of the 22, I have to see what those other 21 must have looked like. Holy shit. Keith Lee's run in AEW, save for a couple of matches, because there were a handful of great ones when he was tag team champions with Swerve, has been a bust. I'm sorry, but it has. And the more time that's gone by, I don't know that it has as much to do with bad booking as it does the man's health. You know, Bray Wyatt's death and Keith Lee's post about his friend was a pretty sobering reminder of what Keith Lee himself went through and how COVID almost killed him. There was a lot of vagueness around his status for a while and his health situation until he eventually, revealed exactly what it was that he went through and the heart inflammation and everything else. And it almost killed him. And I seriously wonder how much of his lack of involvement in the main shows and the fact that we never got that big singles match with Swerve has to do with any lingering health issues stemming from what he went through. Since joining AEW, the man has had exactly one singles match that went longer than 10 minutes. That was against Chris Jericho on Dynamite. That's it. He just hasn't been the same since. And it could be that they're protecting him by not putting him in as many singles matches, and the ones they do, they keep them very short. Everything else is tags. Either back when he was with Swerve, or he'll do tag team matches with Dustin Rhodes. But I seriously think that may be the reason why we haven't seen them doing much with him, and I'm not sure they ever will. And it's too bad, because I truly believe he had star potential. After that Royal Rumble moment with Brock Lesnar, the fist bump at Survivor Series with Roman Reigns, the double champion deal in NXT, I thought Keith Lee would be working with those guys again before long. And the idea that his illness may have robbed him of that, I mean, look, in the big picture, who cares, right? The most important thing is that he's still alive. But watching that last night, him standing there during that Botchamania delight was just really sad. After Bryan Danielson's comments last week about making a promise to his daughter, Birdie, that he would stop wrestling full-time when she turns 7, which she does next year, he clarified things a little bit in an interview with Sports Illustrated. He said, "I don't think I'll ever reach a point where I declare that I'm absolutely done. I want the ability to show up when I want to show up. Terry Funk is someone I always admired. He retired 1,000,000 times, but he loved it so much he couldn't help but keep doing it. And he did it when he wanted. For me, it might be a couple of times a year, or it might be years between matches. In my mind, it's around August of next year, as far as his stepping away full-time. My daughter will say, 'Daddy, are you going to be done wrestling when I turn 7? And I'll respond, 'Well, not exactly when you turn 7, but I'll be on the home stretch. I didn't get a chance to do All In this year. I would like that chance next year. We have a show, Wrestle Dream, this October in Seattle, where I'm wrestling Zack Sabre Jr. If we have another next year in Seattle, maybe it will be then. My daughter turns 7 in May, so it's a good time to close down the shop. I always thought I would wrestle until the day I die, but it's not going to be this regular weekly wrestling. I don't even know if it's going to be wrestling at big shows. I've always wanted to wrestle for Defy in Seattle. How easy would it be for me to call the promoter and pop in some weekend? They wouldn't even need to promote me. I could come in, surprise people, and do my thing.' Now, he also said that another factor in his decision is the rate of injuries that he has suffered of late. He said, 'There is the realization that over the past year, I'm getting hurt after every big match that I have. That's a sign. I love wrestling, but I do not want to wrestle at the expense of my long-term health. I did the Iron Man match with Max, and then I didn't wrestle again until Anarchy in the Arena, and even that was a lot of smoke and mirrors. Then I wrestled Okada and I broke my arm. The injuries are starting to pile up. At what point is that worth the risk, especially when my kids want and need me at home? And that is a concern. That is a valid concern that as he gets older, the injuries are starting to pile up for Bryan Danielson. He did take time off, a lot of time off after that Iron Man match. And the broken arm, that was a freak thing. I don't think that's an indication of, his body betraying him. I mean, that I look at as just one of those kind of fluky freak things or issues of positioning more than age or anything else. But, his career the first time was ended due to injury, and he had it taken away from him. And now he has the opportunity to write his final chapter the way that he wants to. And I'm sure that he doesn't want to go out with a bad concussion. Adam Cole thought his career might be over last year with one bad concussion. Danielson can't even count the number of times he's been concussed. So whether it's a concussion or a broken neck or something, I mean, he doesn't want that to dictate how he goes out a second time. He wants to be able to say, okay, I'm going to go out on my terms the way that I want to go out. And I understand that. But, this year alone, he's had the best Iron Man match that I have ever seen. The best strap match that I have ever seen. We finally got to see him wrestle Okada, and he beat him with a broken arm. If he was to retire tomorrow, he'd be going out at the top of his game, even with all the injuries. Him going from full-time to part-time, he already feels part-time. Look at the year he's had. He hasn't been full-time this entire year. So I don't think that it would feel all that much different if he went to a part-time schedule. So long as we can see him in the ring from time to time, I think that's the best way to go. To maintain his health and his longevity. It's smart. I would rather have 2 or 3 great Bryan Danielson matches every year than have him working every week and suffering another career-ending injury. And last night on Collision, he was in action. He got pinned by Ricky Starks in a tag team match. It was Bryan and Claudio against Starks and Big Bill. And he got pinned by Ricky after a low blow and a Rochambeau. Now on Collision this coming Saturday, it's Danielson against Starks in a Texas death match. So after what he just said in this interview about the injuries are piling up and I don't want to get hurt and not be able to play with my kids, he's in a Texas death match on Collision this week. As long as it's not a Texas Chainsaw Massacre match, I'm okay with it. As long as we don't get Leatherface coming out wielding a chainsaw.